Good morning, dear friends. Happy Wednesday. Now, I a little while ago announced this kind of tentative schedule of Monday through to Sunday, and I was trying to give every day a cute name, and I always find that with alliteration comes motivation. So I've definitely settled on Tidy Up Tuesday, Workout Wednesday, and Tidy Up Thursday. Sunday Fun Day is definitely one that I think I'm happy with. But Monday, I was doing Mum and Dad Mondays because I was posting videos with my mum and dad. But I kind of want to rename Mondays to something along the same line as, Tidy Up Tuesday, like something that I'm motivated to do on a Monday. I could do Makeup Mondays, it's like, oh, on Monday, wake up and actually put on makeup because I haven't worn makeup in a very long time. I will still post videos with my mum and dad, but I won't specifically do that on Mondays. So if you can think of something, a cute, motivational thing to do on Monday, Friday, and Saturday, leave it in the comments down below. And speaking of the comments down below, when I woke up this morning, I woke up naturally at 6:30 in the morning, which still blows my mind to think that for 28 years of my life, I could only wake up at midday or later. And now, thanks to the medication that I'm on, I have a regular sleep cycle and I wake up in the early morning. And it's so strange because come the end of the day, anything I did between 6 a.m. and 10 a.m. feels like a different day because it was so long ago. Anyway, so comments. Woke up early and I was just waiting for my alarm to take my medication, and I was reading through the comments and I came across a comment that is not the first of its kind. It's not the 10th of its kind. It's the 100th of its kind. But this comment in particular is what motivated me to do what I'm about to do. So this comment was left by Sunday with Sprinkles, and they said, respectfully, have you been tested for Asperger's or autism? Often misdiagnosed in women/girls as ADD or OCD. Would explain the task-oriented tunnel vision, happiness in staying home, strong love of and comfort with animal friends, feeling more comfortable talking with the camera, and feeling of not... Whoa! Don't poo. Oh, Errol! He jumped up because he needed to poo. And he didn't want to poo on himself. Just clip the... But also he just pooed on the wheat pack. Thank you. Well, hey, look. Oh my God, you just started the webcam on the laptop. Oh my God. Okay, we're gonna take a selfie. Oh no, he left. So much just happened. So much just happened. I need to clean the poo off the bed. Hey, one of the best things about owning pigeons, if you're a germaphobe, which I am not, I've owned birds since I was like 4 years old, so nothing really phases me. But if you don't like the idea of bird poo, parrots that eat a fruit-based diet like Archie, big old sloppy poo is very hard to clean up. Birds that eat a seed-based diet, they do like pellets. It's kind of like when a rabbit does a poo or a guinea pig. It's just like a hard little ball. So at least when he does a poo, it doesn't leave any markings or anything. And if your pigeon is doing poos and it's leaving green stains, they're probably unwell. Anyway, we're talking about autism. So come here. I find comfort in my animal friends. Please return. Hello. So strong love of and comfort with animal friends, feeling more comfortable talking with the camera, and feeling of not fitting into the normal mold. Like, why can't I be like and feel like and function like everyone else? But also explain why the meds aren't really working consistently as they should. Just an amateur observation. I just see a lot of the struggles I had at your age and have since overcome by stop trying to fit into the normal schedules and expectations. And then they also said, if you're curious, maybe try the RAADS test at Embrace Autism. Hope this helps. Now, a lot of people with autism have left comments for me over the past 26 days saying, Alex, have you ever been tested for autism? And to be honest, I have absolutely considered the fact that I may have it, but I have several friends with autism and I don't relate to any of the traits that they show or that they've told me about. I do realize now though, because of my ADHD diagnosis and me thinking, no, I don't have ADHD, I don't do any of that stuff. There are so many layers to neurodivergency, and one condition can have thousands of different ways that it shows itself. So I thought, all right, I'll do this test, and maybe anyone else that's thought possibly they might have, even if you don't know what you have, if you're just like, I do feel different, or I relate to a lot of the things Alex does, or I relate to a lot of the things that people in the comments say that they do, maybe do this self-assessment with me. And I don't know how it works though, because I haven't actually done it yet, but if it's just like an answer the questions kind of thing and you get a score, maybe you should try too. So that's how we're going to start our morning. We're going to cuddle our, what was the exact wording? Strong love and comfort with animal friends. We're going to strongly love and find comfort with our animal friend. If you have one, please acquire animal friend and take comfort in it. And let's do this autism assessment. So it says here that the RITVO Autism Asperger Diagnostic Scale Revised is a self-report questionnaire designed to identify adult autistics who escape diagnosis due to a subclinical level presentation. Okay, I see why I was directed to this website, because I guess it would be considered a subclinical level presentation, because my psychiatrist has never said anything. So it says basic information statements, 80. Oh, this is going to be a long video, because if I were to answer one a minute, that's 80 minutes. But we all know how much I like to talk. So this could possibly be 160 minutes. And someone's just decided to start mowing their lawn outside. I'm very sorry about that. Anyway, so it says, well, this says the duration is 10 to 30 minutes. How can it be 10 to 30 minutes if there's 80 statements? Type screening tool, and this was published in 2011, but okay, take the test here. Oh, okay, the RADS, or I just want to call it the RADS because the R just stands for revised. So let's take the RADS. Please read each statement below and choose the answer that best fits your experiences during social interactions. Okay, it's actually like a tick the box kind of thing. So if you want to do this yourself, you're not going to be able to just sort of answer in your head. So if you want to do it, just go to Google and type in RAADSR, Embrace Autism. I'll just give you a moment to do it now if you do want to do it. Maybe just open up a new tab. You don't have to have me open on the screen because I'm just going to be sitting here cuddling Errol. So have you opened a new tab? Do you have the RADS open? Let me, hang on, I'm just going to go back to the, you know what? Look, I'm buying you some time. Let's type this in. We're going to type in RAADS-R and then embrace, EMBRACE, autism, AUTISM. Now it's the first one that comes up, the very first link, embrace-autism.com and RADS Embrace Autism. So then we open that page, we see a little man and he's holding a sign and he looks like the old Prime Minister of Australia. We scroll down a little bit, we see the contents, we see basic information, and then there's a big button that says, take the test here, RADS. So we click on that. Are you ready? Let me see, the time is 7:30 a.m. Okay, let's see if it's really 10 minutes to half an hour. I am a sympathetic person. I cry all the time. Literally, true now and when I was young. True only now. True only when I was younger than 16. Oh, it's true, but only when I was older than 16. So I guess true only now, maybe? I've been sympathetic more so. It's funny, actually. Here we go. The very first tangent. Sorry, slight segue here. I have said this to many people, actually, that when I was younger, I used to be absolutely obsessed with horror movies. You guys know that I love heavy metal music, and I was an emo / goth, whatever you want to call it, when I was in school. But I was the biggest horror movie buff back when we used to have, VHS stores, Video Easy, like you'd go rent a VHS, well, DVD actually for me. I would go to our local one and rent every single horror DVD. I would just go to the horror section and I would work my way through. I started with the most popular ones. I'd watch The Hills Have Eyes, The Ring, The Omen, Texas Chainsaw, what else? I'm forgetting now. What's that one with the scarecrow? Freddy versus Jason. Literally any main title horror movie you can think of, I watched it. So I went through those first, and then once I'd watched all of those, then I went, scary movie, not that that really counts. I went through and then watched them in alphabetical order. I'd go to the VHS store and I would just pick, I'd start at A, and I would just watch all of them. And I've watched all these random niche horror movies. Anyway, I used to love horror. And then one day, I got invited over to a friend's place. I think I must have been 17 or 18. And we were watching Hostel, and a scene happened. And I remember for the very, very first time, I felt physically ill. And it wasn't even that bad of a scene, or it wasn't really that horrific, like compared to things I've seen in, what's that one? Do you want to play a game? Things I've seen in The Hills Have Eyes and various movies. What happened was really not that bad. But I was just suddenly, my stomach just turned and I couldn't watch the rest of the movie. And I left. I called my dad and I got him to pick me up because the movie was, was only half an hour or so into the movie. So I was like, there's no point in me staying here. I feel so upset about what I just witnessed. So my dad picked me up and people were like, Alex, where are you going? Because I used to host horror movie nights at my house. We would pull an all-nighter and we'd watch 6 horror movies in a row. And I left and they're like, that's not like you. And I was like, I don't know, that scene with the ankle just like really distressed me. And they were like, but it wasn't even that bad. And I'm like, I know. Anyway, I've not been able to watch a horror movie since then, because if I watch anything horror, gore, I feel as though I sympathize with the character and the pain that they're experiencing. Where when I was young, I was like, the only thing that made me sad when I was young was the dog dying in what's that Will Smith movie? The one with the German Shepherd. I think we're all scarred from that when the dog died. And anything that hurt animals would upset me, but I never cared about humans. I was like, humans, pff, torture them all you want, whatever. But yeah, anyway, I think I was 17. Maybe, yeah, 17 maybe. And I couldn't watch horror after that. And I did find that from that point onwards was when I started crying in movies. I never used to cry in movies. And I went to a movie and I can't tell you what it was because I can't remember, but it was the very first time I cried during a movie, and I came out of it and I said to someone, yeah, I cried. It was Harry Potter. This was the last Harry Potter. I can't remember what it was, but I had tears in my eyes and I was like, what is going on here? Why am I crying? And I definitely noticed that I just started to become more sympathetic. I used to cry. People would tell me a story about something that happened to them and I would cry while they were telling me the story. Anyway, it's 7:35 a.m. now, so I just spent 5 minutes answering the question with the answer true, but only now. 2, I often use words and phrases from movies and television in conversations. True now and when I was young, true only now, true only when I was younger than 16, or never true. See, that's a hard one. I want to say true now and when I was young, but I don't. Yes, and when I was young. Yes, I can think of the amount of times when I was a kid that my dad and I would throw phrases from movies around, particularly from Spaceballs. If anyone's watched Spaceballs, my dad and I, we watched Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, Spaceballs, Blazing Saddles, The Three Amigos. Like, my parents are older, so a lot of the movies that I was raised watching were their favorites from when they were younger. And so my dad and I were always like, Ruprecht? Why is there a cork on the fork? Or we're like, actually, God, now that I stop and look back on that, if you've watched Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, I feel like Ruprecht is probably a bit of an insensitive character. But Ruprecht says, there's this scene where he says, excuse me, may I go to the bathroom? And Michael Caine says, yes, you may. And then Ruprecht goes, thank you. My dad and I used to just throw around lines from movies all the time together. So, and as you guys have probably seen in so many of my videos, I'm always talking. I actually said this. I swear I said this. Yes, in the video, I was driving somewhere and then I said, I will have order. To quote Star Wars. God, that lawnmower is so fucking annoying. Do you have to do that now? You won't hear me. My backyard is very, very, very far away from his. I'm often surprised when others tell me I have been rude. See, the way that I want to answer that is no, because I'm not rude to people. But my mother would beg to differ. I know my mum, when I was younger, was always like, Doc, don't be so rude. And I'm like, I'm not being rude. Maybe I'll just say true, but when I was younger than 16. Hey, they stopped. There's no way they heard me. There's no way. Sometimes I talk too loudly or too softly and I'm not aware of it. True now and when I was young, my voice gets progressively louder and louder and louder, and then someone, or Dan usually, will be like, can you just turn the volume down? I often don't know how to act in social situations. This is a really hard one for me to answer because I am two people when it comes to socializing, and I don't know what it is or where I draw the line, but I can go to a party and be the only person there that I like. Maybe it's an old work friend's birthday party and I just know that one person, and I go to the party and I will literally only know one person, and then suddenly come 2 minutes or 20 minutes into the party, I'm the only person talking and there's a group of people sitting on the floor looking at me, listening to me talk. This literally happened with Mary Cherry, another YouTuber who I went to school with. She invited me to her friend's housewarming party or something, I can't remember, and she was the only person that I knew. Oh, actually Tiasha came too, because Tiasha and Mary and I are friends. So it was just Tiasha and Mary and I was shitting myself. Like, I was standing at the door and I couldn't even knock on the door. I was trembling and Tiasha was like, come on man, let's go. And Tiasha knocked on the door and Mary opened the door and Tiasha literally like pushed me through the door. And suddenly I went from shitting myself, I guess I shat myself all over the front porch, and then I was empty and cleansed, and then I was in the party, and then I was smiling and introducing myself to people, and I came away with several new friends on Facebook who I still talk to this day. But so when it says I don't know how to act in social situations, then when I think about it, when I'm out with Lucy is a massive extrovert, and we'll go shopping, and she'll be talking to the shop assistant or whatever, and she'll have a full conversation, and I stand there and I shut down and I literally can't say anything. When we were at Fashion Week, we sat down, one of the shows we got invited to, they put us in the front row, and we came and took our seats, and then some girls came and they sat down behind us, and Lucy leaned across to me and she said the girl sitting behind us was on MAFS, you know, like Married at First Sight, and she said we should say hello. And I was like, I'm just here to look at the clothes, I'm not here to talk to anyone. And then Lucy turned around and she was like, hi, I'm Lucy, how's it going? Are you ladies enjoying your time here? And they struck up a full conversation, and I don't know what happened to me, I just shut down, and I just started like kind of rocking back and forth, and every so often I'd look over my shoulder and kind of smile, and then the girl from MAFS, Married at First Sight, asked me something, and I smiled and answered, and then I just went back to looking straight ahead at the runway. We were waiting for the show to start, and I couldn't say anything. And then when I met Kim Dow, who you guys were like, Alex, Kim is also at Fashion Week, you should go say hello. I could not bring myself to go say hello to someone that I've never spoken to before, but Lucy was like, you're gonna go say hello to Kim. And Lucy grabbed Kim and she went, oh, hi Kim, my name's Lucy, this is Alex. And I was like, hello. And I didn't know what to say. And then she just had a bit of small talk with Lucy for a little while, and she was just about to turn and leave. And I went, excuse me, do you mind if we take a photo together? My subscribers have been asking me to meet up with you, and I'd like to put it on my story that I met you. And she goes, are you Alex? Are you Pretty Pastel, please? And I was like, yes. And she was like, oh, I'm so sorry, I thought you had red hair. And then from that second, Kim and I went, and we talked non-stop. She invited us, she came to lunch with us, we went and had yum cha, then she invited us back to her apartment, and we stayed at her apartment for hours playing with her Shiba Inu, and I left that day with a new friend who I've seen, like since then, we've been to events together, and I get on with Kim so well. So I don't know, I guess I can say true now and when I was young, because saying that you don't know how to act in social situations, I do have times when I completely shut down and I don't know how to act, but then I have times where I'm terrified to enter the social situation, but then suddenly somehow I'm acting fine. So maybe I will say true, because I don't know how I'm supposed to act, but sometimes I just get through it. I can put myself in other people's shoes, true now and when I was young. Like, I feel like it's 7:44 a.m, so I've now been doing this for 15 minutes and I'm only on question 6, so I'm not going to explain everything. But yes, I always put myself in other people's shoes. That's how Michelle ended up living with us. Some of you remember Michelle from Thriftmas a couple of years ago. Michelle started as a subscriber of mine, and she came to my charity event in Chatswood, and we hit it off immediately and started chatting. I followed her on Instagram, and I used to watch all of her stories, and then I wanted to do a video with a subscriber, and she was the first person that I thought of. I took her out shopping. We got on so well. We stayed friends for ages. And then Michelle and Sam organically hit it off, started chatting online, and they started dating. And then Michelle's family moved away really quickly with hardly any notice, and she was freaking out about where she was going to go, because she has dogs and fish and a lot of personal belongings, and it's very hard to, with like a week's notice, find a share house. and I was thinking, oh my gosh, poor Michelle, you know, she's gonna have to, if she moved into a share house, she's not gonna know the people. That would be so awful and so uncomfortable to move in with people that you've never met before and have to do it in a really rushed way. You know, you don't really get a chance to go and see multiple share houses and meet multiple different potential housemates. And also she's got dogs, and like, where is she going to put her things in a share house? She'll probably have to get rid of a bunch of her things. And Sam's place wasn't ready to accommodate anyone other than Sam. I'm just going to throw him under the bus here and say Sam sleeps on a mattress on the floor since he moved out with us. Since he moved out with us, and then he went back home to be closer to his workshop for his blacksmithing and all that sort of thing. And he literally sleeps on a mattress like next to his workshop. And we were always like, do you want a bed frame? And he's like, no, I'm fine. Anyway, Sam's place wasn't ready to accommodate Michelle. So I was like, I put myself in her shoes and I thought, oh my God, like what, that I think that would just be the most stressful situation, having to suddenly figure out where you're gonna go. And I said to her, come live here. And she was like, what? Are you serious? And I said, yeah, well, I mean, we've got a decent sized house. We've got a 2-story house. So if you're downstairs and we're upstairs, we won't be in each other's space. You know, we'll just be in the kitchen together, but there's a bathroom downstairs. We've got a bathroom upstairs. Just come stay. Or even if you want to just come bring your things here and sleep at Sam's house, because at that point she was staying over at Sam's house for long periods of time. She, you know, which is obviously fine because there's room for her on the mattress, but there wasn't room for her belongings. So her and Sam discussed it, and she said yes, and then she came here to live, and it was only going to be a short-term thing, but it's ended up being maybe 7 months now, and I'm really upset that I wasn't doing the daily vlogging while she was still living here, because we had such a good time. You know, like, Michelle was here full-time, and then Sam would come and stay every so often, and we literally had the best time. I loved it, and the whole reason that she came to live here is because the moment that I saw that she had to quickly find a new place to live, I put myself in her shoes and I thought about how awful that must be and how stressful that must be. So I immediately offered. And anyway, now Sam's been working very hard renovating at his place, trying to get it all ready. And I think in the next 2 weeks according to Sam, 1 month according to Michelle, his place will be ready for her to move into. But it just depends on how long it takes to finish the renovations. But anyway, yes, I always put myself in other people's shoes. 7, I have a hard time figuring out what some phrases mean, like, you are the apple of my eye. Never true. I only like to talk to people who share my special interests. That's a hard one to answer. It's not that I only like to talk to people that like birds and photography. But when I find someone that likes birds, or I find or meet a photographer, that's it. That's actually how I started doing wedding photography. After I worked as a barista for a long time and was obsessed with making coffee, and like, huge coffee nerd, and I used to love meeting people that were baristas, and I used to try to pick their brains about things. And anyway, when I was at uni, I was a barista. Then when I started my corporate job in the city, before I started my job, when I was doing my internship in the city, I got a job at a camera store in the city, because I was in the city for my internship, and I was like, okay, well, I'm a bit over being treated like shit in the hospitality industry, so I'd like to switch to retail, and I'm fucking obsessed with cameras, and I know everything there is to know about every single camera available for sale. So I applied for a job at a camera house, and camera house. I did work at a camera house for a while, but then I went to a camera store in the city, and a customer came in to bring their Nikon in for repair, or Nikon, whatever you call it, not the superior camera, Canon and Sony supremacy, and she handed me her camera and I went to box it up to send off for repair, and we got chatting, and she's a wedding photographer. And I said to her that I'd always wanted to get into wedding photography, and this is 8 years ago. And she just said, oh, well, would you like to come on a shoot with me? And I was like, are you serious? And she said, yeah, like, you know, I can always go for a second photographer, even if your images don't turn out. Like, it's some practice for you, and if they do work out well, then I'll have extra photos for my clients. So I went with her, and that's what started me off as a wedding photographer. And I ended up, she was so happy with the photos that I took that first day. It was literally just a for fun kind of trial, but she was so happy with the images, she paid me, and then she asked to hire me full-time. Well, not full-time, but like just about every single weekend to do photography as her second. And then it ended up, she was so happy with my photography that she would just send me to one wedding and she'd go do another wedding. And then the weddings that I photographed on her behalf, I ended up getting a lot of clients from the guests of those weddings. So people would be, you know, in the audience, in the guest pool, and they would see the photos once I gave them to the couple, and then they'd say, oh wow, that's a good photographer, I'll hire her for our wedding. Or they would say to someone who was getting married, hey, do you need a photographer? Oh, I know a good one. And I ended up, yeah, I've been a wedding photographer for 8 years. Actually, Mimi left a comment yesterday saying, I thought you were a photographer, because I was talking about my work in media and marketing. So to answer that question, yes, I am a photographer, but wedding photography is only like a weekend kind of gig, or occasionally I get booked for weekday gigs. But anyway, so I only like to talk to people who share my special interests. It's not that I only like to, I can talk to people, but I light up when I talk to people that share my interests. Like the guy, when I was on the bird watching tour in Tasmania, and I said to him, so are you a bird person, or do you just take the tours, like you know, it's your job working at the wildlife park, but you know, you're not specifically a bird person? And he's like, oh no, I am the bird person. And then him and I were just like, blah, 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 and Dan was just following me around carrying my tripod. I guess we can say true now and when I was young. Let's say that. I focus on details rather than the overall idea. I kind of feel like me going off into these tangents every single time I answer a question, oh, bye-bye, you leaving? Kind of answers that question. So let's say true now and when I was young. No, don't poo on my cookie. No! It's okay, he pooed on the packet of my cookie. It did not touch my cookie. Sorry, I'm sorry. See, every time he needs to poo, very polite bird, he gets up and he goes and poos somewhere else. And on this instance, he went and put his bum over the top of this and pooed on that. Right, you can stay there. Yes, I focus on details rather than the overall idea. I always notice how food feels in my... Fucking hell. I always notice how food feels in my mouth. This is more important to me than how it tastes. That's a really hard one to answer. I wish there was an I don't know option, because, okay, oh my gosh, this specific question is part of the reason that I've never thought to do any sort of autism self-assessment. Several of my friends that are autistic eat their food in sections. So if there's a plate that's got peas and corn and steak and mashed potato and gravy, they'll eat the peas and they'll eat the corn, and they don't like it when the food, you know, mixes. And I'm like, could not be me. I want everything on my fork all at once. Tiasha's like me. Tiasha and I, we're big buffet gals, and when we go to Japan and you stay in a hotel in Japan and you get like a buffet breakfast, we go down there and we put all the stuff on our plate, and you're just like you're putting the chipolata sausage and the tomato and the potato and the tomato sauce and the baked beans. You're trying to cram it all on your fork and eat it all in one go. And then the absolute best part of eating a big meal with a bunch of different things is when you get to the very bottom of it and you're just like scraping all the stuff onto the fork, and it's all the flavors at the bottom that have all gone together, and it's just like the best mouthful ever. Like arguably my favorite thing to eat, steak and mashed potato and salad. And I will put a bit of rocket, tomato, mashed potato, steak onto my fork and dip it in béarnaise sauce. I love it. But this question is saying, I notice how food feels in my mouth. Am I doing it like that because of how it feels? Actually, I've never thought about it like this before. But the reason that I don't eat things on their own is because I don't like how it feels. If I cut a piece of steak, even if it's a really delicious, juicy piece of steak, I have to have something with it that's like a different texture. This is interesting. Wait, now I'm really thinking very, very hard. I will put kimchi on top of a piece of meat because the kimchi is crunchy and the meat is chewy. So the two textures combined feels better to eat than just the chewy meat. I can't just have a fork with mashed potato because the texture of mashed potato on its own, I don't like the texture of it. So I always put something else with it. Sorry, this is literally the first time in my life I've ever thought about it this way. True now and when I was young. See, this is why when you do tests like this, you kind of have to think hard. It's very easy to just answer immediately, but when you actually think about it. I miss my best friends or family when we were apart for a long time. True now and when I was young. Sometimes I offend others by saying what I'm thinking, even if I don't mean to. See, that's a hard one to answer because I am not the person that I am potentially offending. I would say no because I chronically overthink everything that I say. But Daniel has said to me on several occasions that what I said hurt his feelings. And I'm like, what? No, it wasn't supposed to. No, I didn't mean it like that. And maybe it happens in other situations with my other friends, but none of them are comfortable enough to tell me. I know my mum and Dan have told me that I've offended them, and Lucy, actually, I can tell I've offended Lucy in the past, not deliberately. I would never try to offend someone. I wouldn't even dream of saying something to offend someone. But I do know with Lucy that I've said something to her in the past and she's kind of looked sad, and I've said, what? And she's like, oh, just that was a bit hurtful. And I'm like, shocked Pikachu face, like, oh, I wasn't trying to be hurtful. So maybe I'll say true only now because true now and when I was young, maybe. Yeah, my mum would say yes, but I've always said to my mum, you're really, really sensitive or you're over exaggerating. I've never offended my dad in my life, I don't think. Dad, please tell me if I have. So I'll say true now and when I was young, tentatively. I only like to think and talk about a few things that interest me. I guess true now and when I was young. I only like to think and talk about a few things that interest me. I mean, doesn't everyone? like that's one of those questions. It's question 13. That's my lucky number. Doesn't it apply to everyone? Like, doesn't everyone just like to think and talk about the things that interest them? Like, why would you want to talk about something that doesn't interest you? Well, I mean, no, I'll talk to other people about things that interest them. Like, every time I have a conversation with anyone, my primary objective is to make that person feel interested in, you know, like I'm very, very aware of the fact that in conversations, if someone is talking to me and they don't ask me how I am or how work's been going, or, you know, I get really, really offended and I think that that person's not interested in me. So I always ask whenever I'm having a conversation with anyone, I'm like, so how's work going? And I make sure I know what they do for work. And I often remember small details like their boss's name or an employee that they complained about, and I absorb it. And the next time I see them, I take great interest and I ask them, I'm like genuinely interested, you know, I'm like, oh, tell me, so is Sharon still annoying this week? You know, and they're often surprised that I remember. So I only like to think and talk, oh, well, but I only like to think and talk. Yeah, I really only spend time, hang on, no, head empty, no thought. I only like to think about, I think about nothing most of the time. I'm normally just thinking about how much I hate myself. How do I even answer this? I only like to think and talk about a few things that interest me. This is like when you're playing Skyrim and you get 4 responses and you're like, but I wouldn't say any of those things. The person comes up and they're like, hey, stop. Do you have money? And then it's like, punch him. No, I don't have money. Go away, criminal scum. Draw sword. I'm like, can't I just be like, yes, friend, here, take my wallet, just leave me in peace. I only like to think and talk about a few things that interest me. I'll say true now and when I was young, because I feel like general conversation is surely separated from this, and having an interest in your friends is surely separated from that. I'd rather go out to eat in a restaurant by myself than with someone I know. True only now. I would never eat out alone when I was younger, but when I started working in the city, and there was food available to me, if my colleagues were going out for lunch and they'd want me to come, I'd be like, oh, no. But then if they came back and said, oh, the place we went for lunch was really good, I would go there for my own lunch alone. And I would just like take my laptop or pull out my phone, or even just sit there and just watch, you know, oh, sorry, Errol. I just watch people, you know. So yeah, that's true only now. I cannot imagine what it would be like to be someone else. Okay, all right. Okay, I'm sorry. He's sitting, the spot that he keeps putting, oh, don't. The spot he keeps putting himself is like really precariously on the end of the bed. Okay. I understand. I'm gonna go get Dumpling. I need an animal companion. My God. Wow. I really do resonate with that whole animal thing. Sorry, here I come. Oh, here comes Dumpling! Okay. I'm going to put Errol somewhere else so Dumpling can't harass him. Errol, it's okay, don't be scared. can't have him. Okay. Okay, sorry. Yes, so ever since that comment, I'm like, you're completely right. I do really need the comfort of my animals. I'm like, I can't sit here and talk without my birds. Yeah, have a cuddle. It's okay. You go under here. Dumpling won't bother you then. All right. And look, I've got this shoebox of food. Dumpling may come eat. Okay. Errol likes it under the blanket. He always shuts his eyes and goes to sleep. I'm only up to question 15. It's 8:05 a.m. I started at 7:30. This has been 35 minutes. Hello, Dumpling. Oh. All right. Yes, you get that big bowl of food all to yourself. I cannot imagine what it would be like to be someone else. Never true. I think about that a lot. I've been told that I am clumsy or uncoordinated. True only now. Only now. I was actually an extremely coordinated kid. I did fencing, tennis, I did, I didn't play soccer, but I used to be able to dribble the ball. I played hockey. I was super coordinated, but these days, not so much. Others consider me odd or different. I don't know, what do you guys think? True now and when I was young. I understand when friends need to be comforted. True now and when I was young, absolutely. I'm very sensitive to the way my clothes feel when I touch them. How they feel is more important to me than how they look. Yeah. True now and when I was young. No. True only now, actually. I remember I used to have a sweater for school that was really scratchy, and everyone at school used to say that they couldn't wear it with nothing underneath, but I used to wear it with nothing underneath. But now, these days, the amount of pieces of clothing I've gotten rid of because they were so scratchy, I just can't deal with them. I like to copy the way certain people speak and act. It helps me appear more normal. I've done that for a while. It's funny, a lot of my like hand gestures and the way that I articulate. See how I'm doing this? I picked this up off a friend that I went to school with. When she used to explain things, she used to hold her arm like this, and she'd keep her elbow very still, but she would kind of do things with her hand. Or she would hold her hand very still like this, and she'd go, yeah, but why? And she'd kind of, so much of my behavior, the way that I speak sometimes, even, how do I explain? I picked this up of her. When she used to mimic someone, she'd go, oh, well, like this, and she would kind of put on a, yeah, well, if you want to do that, then I'm not going to do that. And that's how she would mimic someone. So then I started doing that as a way to mimic someone. And then when Dan and I got together, Dan went to school. I went to school with this girl, and then she ended up at Dan's school. So Dan also went to school with her. And Dan's always like, gee, you gesture and talk in such a similar way to Nikki. And I'm like, I do too, don't I? Huh. So I guess I do copy. Hello. It can be very intimidating for me to talk to more than one person at the same time. No, I'll say never true, because, well, hang on. Yes, true now and when I was young. It is very intimidating. It is. Like, there's no getting around that. But I can do it. But also sometimes I can't do it. Actually, it's kind of like the situation where Lucy was talking to the girl behind me. I couldn't just turn around and talk to her. Lucy was talking to her, no problem, but I shut down. So I'll say true now and when I was young. I have to act normal to please other people and make them like me. No. No, I don't think I've ever acted normal. Well, I mean, at work, yes. I'll act normal in a work context, but and if I'm photographing, you know what? Even when I'm photographing weddings, I would say that I'm not acting normal. Actually, in none of my jobs, I don't think I've ever tried to act normal. I think I've always just been myself, but like a more reined in version. So I'll say never true. I don't have to act normal to please other people. I'm just me. Meeting new people is usually easy for me. True now and when I was young. I meet people so easily. If any of you watching have ever met me in person, I'm sure that you can attest to that. Like every subscriber I've ever bumped into, it's not just like a hi and bye. We normally have a very long conversation and I love it. I get highly confused when someone interrupts me when I'm talking about something I'm very interested in. What does that mean, highly confused? As in, I know if someone interrupts me, oh, here's a good example. My dad and I are exactly the same in this way. My mum is a chronic interrupter. I'm sorry, mother, I'm throwing you under the bus here. You can't say more than 3 words in a row without mum butting in. And if I'm trying to tell a story and I'm trying to say, let's say about the pigeons, I say, I went to a place that had pigeons and they were in a really, really bad way. So I adopted or rescued the pigeon and brought it back and started to clean it for lice. And once all the lice were gone, I put it in a cage and I gave it, you know, a meal. Let's say that's what I want to say. With my mum in the room, I'll go, I went to a place that had pigeons. Oh, you didn't buy another pigeon, did you? Mum, hold on. Anyway, they were in a really, really bad state. So, you didn't buy a pigeon that's sick, did you? Mum, anyway, so I bought the pigeon. Oh, what did you do that for? Mum, please wait. Anyway, the pigeon had lice. Lice? Oh my gosh. Wait, hey, you better change your clothes quickly. Mum, stop. I can't get more than a few words out without my mum interrupting. So sometimes I'll be talking about something that I'm very passionate about and mum interrupts me and then I go, oh, what was I saying? And then half the time I crack the shits and I'm like, oh, never mind, because I can't remember my train of thought. And the same thing happens to my dad. My dad and I both, as soon as someone if we're going on a tangent about something and we get interrupted, we do usually end up confused and forget what we were saying. So I would say true now and when I was young. It is difficult for me to understand how other people are feeling when we are talking. No, never true. I like having a conversation with several people, for instance, around a dinner table, at school or at work. This is another hard one to answer because the amount of times that I do end up being the one at the dinner table, being the one talking, like most of my life, I am the one talking and people are listening. And it's not because I'm talking over or interrupting anyone. It usually ends up being that, a good example, Grace invited us, Dan and Sam and I, over to her place for Christmas lunch a couple of years ago. And she had her family there. She had her grandparents and her brother and his fiance and her Grace's parents. And then Shelley was there, and then Sam and Dan and I. And there came a point where Grace's grandpa said to me, oh, so Grace tells me that you like to visit Japan or something. And then before I knew it, like everyone at the table was like sort of leaning in and listening to me, and I was talking about things about Japan and stuff, and they were asking me questions, and there was like a solid 45 minutes where I was the only person at the table talking. And I'd never met Grace's grandparents before. I met her parents, but I'd never met her brother or his fiance. And yeah, I just ended up being the only person talking. And I walked away from that lunch and I said to Grace, oh, I had such a nice time. Your family's so nice. And she was like, oh, they just think that you're very interesting, kind of thing. So I think I would say I do like having conversations with several people, but at the same time, it depends on the context and it depends on the people. I take things too literally, so I often miss what people are trying to say. Dan would say true, I would say no, but Dan would fight me and say true. So I'll say true only now, because Dan's the only person that's ever complained about it. So I guess I didn't do it as a kid. It's very difficult for me to understand when someone is embarrassed or jealous. Never true. Some ordinary textures that do not bother others feel very offensive when they touch my skin. True now and when I was young. Like sunscreen. Absolutely not. I get extremely upset when the way I like to do things is suddenly changed. True now when I was young. Dumpling. Hey. Sorry, his little claws are... He's sitting on a lampshade and he can't balance properly, so he keeps readjusting his feet. Dumpling. Dumpling, come here. I don't like it. Dumpling, come here. Hey, hello. Hey, come on. Come on. I have never wanted or needed to have what other people call an intimate relationship. True now and when I was young. I don't talk about it ever, but I've often considered the fact that I may be, I think the word is asexual. I don't have that in me. But I won't go into much detail about that, but there is no drive there. So, but I guess I would say intimate relationship means intimacy. Like, or if you use it in the context of having an intimate relationship, I love my husband with my whole heart, and I do things because he enjoys them. But for me, the most important thing is the mental connection. Dan and I, we often joke that we can read each other's minds because we're so in tune with each other's thoughts. That is the most important thing to me. And I don't require intimacy to love someone or to have a relationship. I just don't. So I would say true now. And when I was young, I mean, I don't think that you should really be talking about intimacy when you're young, but I mean, I'm not gonna lie, when I was 15, 16, first boyfriend, all that sort of thing. You know what, to be fair, I will say true only now, because I had a wild time in my high school 3-year long-term relationship, and I'm not like that anymore. So I would say true only now. It is difficult for me to start and stop a conversation. I need to keep going until I'm finished. True now and when I was young. I speak with a normal rhythm. I don't know. What's a normal rhythm? True now and when I was young. The same sound, color, or texture can suddenly change from very sensitive to very dull. The same sound can suddenly change from very sensitive to very dull. The same color can suddenly change from very sensitive to very dull. The same texture can suddenly change from very sensitive to very dull. Yeah. True now and when I was young. I can't even go into detail about that, because I've literally never thought about that before, but yeah. The phrase, "I've got you under my skin," makes me uncomfortable. I just sang it, so I'm gonna say never true. Sometimes the sound of a word or a high-pitched noise can be painful to my ears. True now. Yeah. True now and when I was young. I am stupidly sensitive to high-pitched noises that no one else hears. So when I'm sitting anywhere, if there's something plugged in, usually when something's plugged into a power point in the wall, it will somewhere emit like a buzzing sound, and no one else will hear it, and it's all I can focus on, and it drives me insane. I have to unplug things, I have to leave rooms because there's just like some high-pitched noise that I can hear that's just a frequency of some sort. So yes, oh, and also the sound of a word. Okay, I'm gonna say like the weebiest thing that I've ever said, but I promise, you know, sorry, a little bit of a tangent here. Some people call me a weeb, and I say I'm not a weeb, because to me, I think a weeb is probably someone that, I don't know, like, I don't think weeb is a mean or offensive term, but I would just categorize someone that watches a lot of anime. Maybe they do cosplay, they go to conventions for like anime, whatever, or they study Japanese language because it's in anime and they think it's cute, and uwu, and they talk with like, you know, little kawaii emojis. Oh, kawaii. They use kawaii for everything, and when they go to Japan, they just want to go to Harajuku, and that's and they want to, you know, go to a maid cafe, and they're not really interested in well, actually, maybe they know everything there is to know about Japan, and they're super obsessed with Japan. I don't know. I think of someone being a weeb, I think of that as like a Japanese kind of obsession, stemming from a love of anime. So they have this image in their mind of what Japan is like based on the many animes that they've watched, and then they take on the characteristics of the cartoons that they watch and the way that the voices and the characters are in the show. They will do that. Look, if you're a weeb, tell me what you think weeb means. But people say Alex is a weeb, but I'm like, I don't think so. I studied Japanese because for my dad's work, he had to go back and forth to Japan multiple times a year, and we often had Japanese people staying in our house, because when they came to Australia for work, they would stay here at my parents' place, and my mum also had to learn Japanese, and my mum used to teach Japanese at school to primary school students, and when she was pregnant with me, she was teaching Japanese. My mum's not a teacher, but it's just something that she also did on the side. So some people say, like, you know, when you're in the womb, what your mother is doing, whether it's listening to certain types of music or reading certain stories or something, you kind of take that on. And I know Mum was teaching Japanese when she was pregnant with me, and when I was born, I grew up learning hiragana, katakana, and English. So Mum used to teach me how to write hiragana and katakana, and even kanji. She taught me a lot of kanji when I was young. I was very good at kanji back then, when I was like 5 years old. But then when I was old enough to be like, no, I don't want to do this anymore, I hated Japanese. I was like, no, I don't want to learn Japanese because you've made me learn it since I was a kid, and now I don't remember anything. But I had to learn it because of literally the fact that there were so many Japanese people in our lives. And first time I went to Japan was with my mum. We were actually going to Scotland to visit family, but we stopped via Japan, and I was able to speak, you know, and get around, and my mum can speak Japanese as well, but I wasn't like, I must go and find a one-piece doll, like, statue or something. You know, I must go to Akihabara and spend $3,000 buying figurines. Hey, no shame. I know that you probably have done that, person watching that has a Goku statue, I don't know. Anyway, I don't watch anime. or I don't sort of, yeah, I don't do it. I've never cosplayed in my life. I don't do any of that sort of thing. Why am I talking about this? Oh, there's a reason, because the question is sometimes the sound of a word can be painful to my ears. So because I've always had an understanding of Japanese, something that I find physically painful, like extremely physically painful. And the perfect example is that my mother-in-law was staying here for a little while, and she was watching a Netflix documentary with a British guy. Was it James May? I can't remember. Yeah, I think it was James May, the one from Top Gear. And he went to Japan, and he's walking around and he's saying, konnichiwa. He's like, look at these people over here. Konnichiwa. The sushi was very genki. And I tried to watch this show for I think I made it 3 minutes in, and I couldn't control it. I felt this physical repulsion. I started like shaking. And at one point he goes, we're going to a restaurant and we're going to have some gyoza. And I was like, that's it, I'm out. Like hearing him say gyoza, it's gyoza. Gyoza. I was like, and even though, hey, don't be a smart ass and be like, hey, you pronounce Harajuku wrong. I'm putting in the effort, you know, I'm like, it's Harajuku. And I think of when I'm on the train and I hear them announce like, Mamonaku, Harajuku, you know, I try to get my pronunciation as close as I can. But people are like, yeah, I went to Harajuku. I'm like, physical repulsion. It causes me actual pain. I wish it didn't, because my mother-in-law was like, gee, that was a good show. It's a shame that you left. Like, you would have really liked it. And I'm like, I'm sure I would have. But hearing him say the words like that made me, like, it was like physically painful. I'm an understanding type of person. True now, when I was young. I do not connect with characters in movies and cannot feel what they feel. True. Only when I was younger than 16. Yeah, see, this is what I was talking about with the horror movies. I cannot tell when someone is flirting with me. Well, as far as I'm concerned, I've never been flirted with in my life, but I suppose the various boyfriends and now husband that I have may disagree, so I'll say true now when I was young. I cannot tell if someone's flirting with me. I can see in my mind in exact detail things that I'm interested in. Yeah, if I like picture anything in my mind that I like I've got a Canon 5D Mark III and a Canon 6D Mark II, and the buttons are in different places and I can like see it in my head where the buttons are. I keep lists of things that interest me even when they have no practical use. For example, sports statistics, train schedules, calendar dates, historical facts and dates. Yeah, I do that. Huh. Not that's, I do. Yeah, I do. When I feel overwhelmed by my senses, I have to isolate myself to shut them down. True now, and when I was young. There's this funny story my parents have told me. For my, I don't remember what birthday party it was, maybe like 6th birthday party or something, Mum and Dad hired a jumping castle and they inflated it, and I remember getting onto it and bouncing around, and I was so happy. And then the guests started arriving and people started coming up to me and hugging me and giving me gifts and saying happy birthday. And I became so terrified that I ran away, and I spent my entire birthday party hiding under a table. I like to talk things over with my friends. What? That's a bit broad. I like to talk things. What are we referring to, like if you and a friend have an issue, you like to sit down and talk it out. Talk things over. I'm guessing that's referring to when something's happened and you like to talk it over with your friend. Depends on the friend. Depends. Someone like Sam, I have cried at Sam many a time because he's said or done something that's hurt my feelings, and I've like cried at him about it. But then there's other people that do things that upset me, but I would never dare. I would never dream of bringing it up. Like, I'd rather sit in a bathtub of ice cubes than confront someone about something. But yeah, I guess it depending on the level of comfort with the friend, I do like to talk things over these days. So I'll say true only now, because that's something that as I've grown up, I've learned it's better to talk about it than let it fester for a long time. I cannot tell if someone's interested or bored with what I'm saying. No, never true. People often end up bored with what I'm saying, but I just keep talking at them. I don't care. I'm like, oh, you're bored? I'll talk harder. It can be very hard to read someone's face, hand, and body movements when they're talking. No, never true. The same thing, like clothes or temperatures, can feel very different to me at different times. True now and when I was young. I feel very comfortable with dating or being in social situations with others. I'm going to say true only. I've never really dated. I had a high school boyfriend for 3 years, dated Sam for 3 years, married Dan, or dated Dan, and have been with Dan for 8-9 years. I've never done like the dating thing, you know, like meet some guy, go to the movies once or twice, and then date a different person. Being in social situations with others. I definitely used to be very comfortable being in social situations, but I've really struggled with that for the past few years. I'm going to say true now and when I was young, because I know I had an easier time when I was younger. Even though I got bullied, when I did find people that I got on with, being social with my friends was the best thing in the world. And I think that the reason I'm not so good socially now is just because my anxiety is a lot worse now. But I don't think that that's actually me as a person. I try to be as helpful as I can when other people tell me their personal problems. True now and when I was young, absolutely. I've been told that I have an unusual voice. For example, flat, monotone, childish, or high-pitched. No, never true. Sometimes a thought or a subject gets stuck in my mind and I have to talk about it even if no one's interested. True. Now and when I was young, I do certain things with my hands over and over again, like flapping, twirling sticks or strings, waving things by my eyes. No, I don't do that. I've never been interested in what most of the people I know consider interesting. True now and when I was young. Yeah. So like, when I was younger, and all the girls that I knew were playing with Barbies and Bratz and all that sort of thing, I was playing with Bionicles and playing Pokemon and Legend of Zelda. When I was in high school, the group of girls that I was originally sitting with, they used to bring magazines in, you know, like teenage magazines, and they would read the sealed section and they'd look at the clothes and things like that. And I was like, this is ridiculous. And then I went and sat with the boys and played Pokemon on the DS with the boys. And I'm the only person I know that is a bird person. I don't have a single friend that has a bird. Caitlin's grandpa has a bird, a cockatiel. And Grace likes photography, but aside from Grace, I don't think that there's... Forgive me if you're one of my friends and you're watching this and you're like, bitch, what? But I'm pretty sure none of my friends like any of the things that I like. Like, I mean, look, I'm sitting here and there's a bird on my head and there's a bird under this blanket. I don't know anyone else like this. I'm considered a compassionate type of person. True now and when I was young. I get along with other people by following a set of specific rules to help me look normal. Nah. Fuck the rules. It's very difficult for me to work and function in groups. I'm gonna say true now when I was young. Group work, my fucking god. University, school, group work, my arch nemesis. I would either be the only person in the group doing anything, or I would not contribute. When I'm talking to someone, it's hard to change the subject. If the other person does so, I can get very upset and confused. Yeah, very true. This is something I've struggled with Dan's family. I don't like to talk about, family online. I can talk about my mum and dad a little bit, but I don't like to. I'll share all the personal things about myself, but when it comes to other people, family-wise, I don't like to share too much. But I will say that something I struggle with Dan's family is that, so with my family, growing up with my mum and dad, if we're sitting at the table and we're talking, yes, my mum interrupts, but she interrupts to ask further questions about what I'm talking about. My dad is the best listener in the world. My dad sits there and just makes direct eye contact and just nods and listens to every single thing. And then at the end, then he talks about what I've spoken about. And that's what I'm used to. But with Dan's family, so Dan's got a sister, an older sister, and she's got a husband, and they now have a child. Dumpling, no. And unfortunately, we lost Dan's dad 2 years ago. So when I sit at the dining table with Dan's mum, Dan, his sister, and her husband, and sometimes when extended family comes, like aunties, grandma, I will be talking about something, and then suddenly Dan's mum might lean over to someone and say, like, oh, how are you liking the food? Or maybe the dog will come into the room and she'll look at the dog and say something about the dog. Stop. And then the conversation will change, and I'll be sitting there and I will start welling up with tears because we were talking about something, or I was discussing something, and then really, really quickly, somehow something ended up sidetracking the conversation, and now everyone at the table is talking about something else. And I had a really, really hard time with it for the first couple of years of Dan and my relationship. I was like, your family doesn't like me. And he's like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, when I talk, they don't seem interested in what I'm talking about. And he's like, no. And I would pull up an example. I'd say, well, I was talking about, work. And then suddenly the conversation shifted because the dog started barking, and then everyone started talking about dogs. And he's like, well, yeah, I mean, conversation just kind of moved on. And I'm like, but I wasn't done talking. And he's like, oh, it's all right. Like, don't take it personally. That's just what we're like. And I'm like, what? Like, my family would never, like, if something pops up, that doesn't matter because you're talking, like, finish talking, and then we'll talk about the next thing. So yeah, in the early days, I cried a lot after family lunches or dinners with Dan's family. And I've come to learn that changing the subject in their context, subject gets changed and they're like, okay, subject, we're moving on. I'm like, but I was talking about this thing. And it really upsets me. So like, yeah, absolutely. Sometimes I have to cover my ears to block out painful noises like vacuum cleaners or people talking too much or too loudly. Yeah, always. Painful noises are very specific for me. Chewing sounds, they call it masticating or something. When you chew and there's like this sort of weird noise. Or like sometimes some people when they talk, as they're talking, there's like a, so they talk and there's this kind of like a wet sound while they talk. Like painful noises. Yes, I feel like actual pain when I hear certain noises. And yeah, I will cover my ears. The amount of times that I've been sitting with Sam and Michelle in Michelle's room, and Hazel, her little chihuahua, when Hazel's happy, she goes, and Hazel just kind of like licks her nose, or she licks Michelle's hand. And I don't want to be rude and get up and leave because we're watching a show, but I will put my head against my shoulder to block that ear, the ear that's closest to where the sound is, and then, or I'll like lean in such a way that I'm blocking my ears, because I literally physically feel pain when I hear certain sounds. I can chat and make small talk with people. Well, you know what? It's question 58. It's 8:41 a.m. I started this at 7:30, so it's been an hour and 10 minutes. So I feel like I can pretty easily talk. Sometimes things that should feel painful are not. For instance, when I hurt myself or burn my hand on the stove. Yeah, but I've always put that down to barista hands. Like I can touch really, really, really hot things that burn other people, but it doesn't feel painful to me. And I'm always like, oh, it's because I worked as a barista and I was touching, you know, the hot milk jug all the time. But yeah, but also I'm a redhead, so like I have a higher pain threshold. But I'll say true. When talking to someone, I have a hard time telling when it's my turn to talk or to listen. True only when I was younger than 16. That's something that I learned the hard way. I got pretty badly scolded by some people I went to school with because they were like, you always interrupt. I am considered a loner by those who know me best. True now, and when I was young, I usually speak in a normal tone. True now, and when I was young. I like things to be exactly the same day after day, and even small changes in my routines upset me. See, that's a hard one. I do like things to be exactly the same, but I don't have a routine, so there can't be small changes in my routine. But I will say that, so like this habit of having the cookies every single day. Oh, Errol's up. Don't poo on my laptop. Don't poo on my laptop. No, birdies, no. Birdies, stop. No. I lost my place. Yeah, I do like things to be exactly the same day after day. Doesn't mean that it happens. But yes, I will say true now when I was young, because yes, that is true. That in an ideal world, that's how it would be for me. How to make friends and socialize is a mystery to me. No, it's not a mystery. I know how to do it. I know what to do. I just choose not to often. Errol, no. It calms me to spin around or to rock in a chair when I'm feeling stressed. Yeah, true now when I was young. The phrase, he wears his heart on his sleeve, does not make sense to me. No, that means that he's a... I know what it means, but I don't know how to describe what it means. Hang on. Don't be mean, Dumpling. It's alright, Errol. Dumpling, you're so rude. Errol just wants some food. Here you go. Errol, it's okay. Errol, come here. Dumpling, you're such a bully. Yeah, okay. Let them fight. They're not fighting. Dumpling's trying to seduce Errol by the... Yep, you can't mate with him. I'm really sorry. Hang on. This is all getting a bit chaotic. Let me just give Errol some food. There you go. Okay, what was I saying? Yeah, the phrase "he wears his heart on his sleeve" does not make sense to me. No, he wears his heart on his sleeve, like he's compassionate, always available, like your heart is right here for all to see. Yeah, it... I'll say never true. If I'm in a place where there are many smells, textures to feel, noises or bright lights, I feel anxious or frightened. You know, I would never have answered yes to this, but it's absolutely true. It's like, there's certain places that I can go and feel happy, and then there's places that I simply cannot go. If anyone's in Sydney and you know Castle Towers, I absolutely cannot go to Castle Towers these days. I was there all the time as a kid. Mate, you're humping my hand. Yeah, I literally lived at Towers. I used to love going to Towers, but these days you can't pay me to go there. So I would say true only now. I can tell when someone says one thing but means something else. True now when I was young, definitely. I like to be by myself as much as I can. True now when I was young, but being by myself but with birds. I keep my thoughts stacked in my memory like they are on filing cards, and I pick out the ones I need by looking through the stack and finding the right one, or another unique way. Does another unique way, can that mean tabs on my internet browser? Because that's literally how I stack my memory. I use tabs on internet browsers for things that I need to remember. I would say true now when I was young. The same sound sometimes seems very loud or very soft, even though it has not changed. True now when I was young. I enjoy spending time eating and talking with my family and friends. True now when I was young. I love sitting and eating and talking with my parents, and I enjoy doing that with friends too, but you know, specific friends. I can't tolerate things I dislike, like smells, textures, sounds, or colors. Yeah, true now when I was young. I don't like to be hugged or held. Not true. Give me the biggest hug in the world. That's something that because that's all I've ever known, like being a massive hugger. The first experience I ever had with someone that didn't like being hugged was at my charity event. So I was like standing in front of a photo booth, and people were coming up and having a chat with me and then taking a photo with me. And someone came up and walked towards me with a big smile on her face, and I was like, hey, and I reached out and hugged her, and then she started crying and she left, and her friend said, I'm really sorry, she has sensory issues. She's just going to need a bit of time outside, and then do you mind if when she comes back in she sort of skips the line, because there's a line of people waiting? And I said, that's totally fine, I'm so sorry. And like, never in my life did it ever occur to me that some people don't like to be hugged. Like I knew that I knew people in school that were like, you know, you could hug them and they wouldn't hug you back kind of thing. But I never knew that it was an issue. And now, ever since I was made aware of that, I try to be really sensitive. I try to either ask, you know, can I hug you? Or I try to gauge the body language. So yeah, I love hugging. When I go somewhere, I have to follow a familiar route, or I can get very confused and upset. I don't really go anywhere, but I'll say true, because I have specific routes, like where I grew up, my dad and I used to go on walks, and we used to take exactly the same path every time, and it had to be in a certain order, and I guess dad and I both would get really upset if it wasn't the same route. So I'll say true. It's difficult to figure out what other people expect of me? How do I answer that? It's so difficult to figure out what other people expect of me. That one's got me really stumped. Really stumped. It's difficult to figure out what other people expect of me. No. I like to have close friends. True now, when I was young. People tell me that I give too much detail. I've been recording for an hour and 20 minutes, and this test was supposed to take 10 to 30. True now, when I was young. I'm often told that I ask embarrassing questions. True now, when I was young. I tend to point out other people's mistakes. True only now. Oh, score. Oh, one incomplete question. Please check question 17. What was question 17? Others consider me odd or different. I did check that. True now when I was young. Okay, all right. Now we say score. Okay. Where's my score? Oh, okay. Score total 133. Language 5. Social relatedness 44. Sensory motor 42. Circumscribed interests 42. Oh, download PDF. Boys, can you relax, please? Waiting for the PDF to download, and now my computer's frozen. So what do my scores mean? Oh, do you want to download? Yes, okay. What do my scores mean? Score 25, you are not autistic. 50, some autistic traits, but likely not autistic. 65, the minimum score at which autism is considered. 90, stronger indications of autism, although non-autistics may score as high. 130, the mean score of autistic people, strong evidence for autism. What was mine? 133. 130, the mean score of autistic people, strong evidence for autism. And then 160, very strong evidence for autism. And then 227, the maximum score autistic people acquire in this assessment. Do note that no single test is conclusive, and not every autistic person necessarily scores above the defined threshold on each test. If you score low on the test but still think you could be autistic, try taking some other autism tests. Statements per subscales. Below you can see which statement of the RADS belong to which of the subscales. Double click or tap on a subscale to see all statements for that subscale grouped together. Okay, so I see. Oh, it goes through every single thing from 1 to 80, and there's a little X, and it's saying below you can see which statements belong to which of this. Okay, so statement 1 is about social relatedness. Statement 2 is about language, and statement 3 is about social relatedness. So if we go back up and we look at statement 1, I'm a sympathetic person, is social relatedness. 2 is I often use words and phrases from movies and television, so that was about language. 3, I'm often surprised when others tell me I've been rude. That was social, what was it called? Social relatedness. Interesting. what does it say? Double click or tap on a subscale to see all statements for that subscale group together. Huh. Okay, so you can click around on this chart and you can basically see which things. I think it's showing. I don't understand. Anyway, that's very interesting. I scored, yeah, score 133. Language 5. Does it give a breakdown of what that means? Like language 5? Anywhere? Anything? Oh, it says recommended next steps. After this, consider taking one of the tests below. Autism Spectrum Quotient, a simple screening test that's used as a basis for pursuing a formal autism evaluation. Well, I guess seeing as I got 133 and this is saying that 130 is the mean score of autistic people, strong evidence for autism. Maybe I should try this Autism Spectrum Quotient, a simple screening test used as a basis for pursuing a formal autism evaluation. All right, I'll click that. Now it's a screen that has an angel holding up a sign that says AQ. It says the Autism Spectrum Quotient is a self-administered questionnaire used to measure autistic traits in adults 16 plus with IQ in normal range. So that's greater than 80. All right, so there's 50 statements and it should take 5 to 10 minutes. Look, I'm gonna do this one and I'm gonna try to not go into crazy detail. For each statement, choose one response that best describes how you feel or how it applies to you. I prefer to do things with others rather than on my own. Definitely disagree. I prefer to do things the same way over and over again. Definitely agree. If I try to imagine something, I find it very easy to create a picture in my mind. Definitely agree. I frequently get so strongly absorbed in one thing that I lose sight of other things. Definitely agree. I often notice small sounds when others do not. Definitely agree. I usually notice car number plates or similar strings of information. Definitely agree. Other people frequently tell me that what I've said is impolite, even though I think it is polite. I'll say slightly agree. When I'm reading a story, I can easily imagine what characters might look like. Definitely agree. I'm fascinated by dates. Definitely agree. In a social group, I can easily keep track of several different people's conversations. Definitely agree. I find social situations easy. Slightly agree. I tend to notice details that others do not. Definitely agree. I would rather go to a library than a party. Definitely agree. I find making up stories easy. Definitely agree. I find myself drawn more strongly to people than things. Definitely disagree. I tend to have very strong interests, which I get upset about if I can't pursue. Definitely agree. I enjoy social chit-chat. Disagree. I don't like chit-chat. When I talk, it isn't always easy for others to get a word in edgeways. Definitely agree. I'm fascinated by numbers. Definitely agree. When I'm reading a story, I find it difficult to work out the character's intentions. Definitely disagree. I don't particularly enjoy reading fiction. Definitely disagree. I find it hard to make new friends. Slightly disagree. I notice patterns in things all the time. Definitely agree. I'd rather go to the theatre than a museum. Definitely disagree. It does not upset me if my daily routine is disturbed. I don't have a daily routine at the moment, so I'm going to say slightly agree, because I know that there is the part of me that so desperately wants a daily routine, but my mental health just prevents me from establishing one. I frequently find that I don't know how to keep a conversation going. Definitely disagree. I find it easy to read between the lines when someone's talking to me. Definitely agree. I usually concentrate more on the whole picture rather than the small details. Definitely disagree. I'm not very good at remembering phone numbers. Definitely disagree. I don't usually notice small changes in a situation or a person's appearance. Definitely disagree. I know how to tell if someone's listening I know how to tell if someone listening to me is getting bored. Definitely disagree. I find it easy to do more than one thing at once. I definitely agree. When I talk on the phone, I'm not sure when it's my turn to speak. Definitely disagree. I enjoy doing things spontaneously. I'm going to say definitely agree, because usually that's the only way I can do anything is spontaneously, because if I think about it too much, I can't do it. I'm often the last to understand the point of a joke. Slightly agree. Well, definitely agree. Definitely agree. I find it easy to work out what someone is thinking or feeling just by looking at their face. Definitely agree. If there is an interruption, I can switch back to what I was doing very quickly. Definitely disagree. I'm good at social chit-chat. Yes, I'm good at it, so I'll say definitely agree. But I hate it. People often tell me that I keep going on and on about the same thing. Definitely agree. When I was young, I used to enjoy playing games involving pretending with other children. Definitely agree. Except I didn't really have any friends, so I used to pretend that Spyro the dragon was with me, and I used to walk around the playground at school playing with Spyro. But then also, when I did have friends, we used to pretend that we had Pokemon, or we'd pretend that we were holding wands, you know, we were at Hogwarts. I like to collect information about categories of things. What does that mean? Yeah, like I can tell you everything about the different types of pigeons. Like there's Medina pigeon, tiger grizzler, Lahore, Middle Eastern red. Like I can tell you all about different plants and what they need, different cameras. Yeah, I do definitely collect information about categories of things. I find it difficult to imagine what it would be like to be someone else. Definitely disagree. I like to plan any activities I participate in carefully. Definitely agree. I enjoy social occasions. Definitely disagree. I find it difficult to work out people's intentions. Definitely disagree. New situations make me anxious. Definitely agree. I enjoy meeting new people. Slightly disagree. That's the thing. If I'm going somewhere and I'm thinking about the fact that there's going to be new people there, I dread it. But then when I actually talk to a new person, the amount of friends I've made, so I'll just say slightly disagree. I'm a good diplomat. Definitely agree. I'm not very good at remembering people's date of birth. Slightly agree, because I remember Dan's and Sam's and my mum and dad, my old high school boyfriend, my friend Tash, like there's a few people, but then also there's other people that no matter how many times they tell me their birthday, I never remember. So I'll just say slightly agree. I find it very easy to play games with children that involve pretending. Definitely agree. Score. Let's see. Total 28. What does my score mean? The AQ doesn't really offer much insight into specific autistic traits, as it only outputs a single score. Any score of 26 or greater indicate the presence of autistic traits. 28. The higher the score, the more autistic traits you have. Furthermore, 79.3% of autistic people score 32 or higher, whereas only 2% of controls do. So scores of 32 and above are particularly significant. The AQ is particularly sensitive in distinguishing between autistic and non-autistic females, as 92.3% of autistic females scored 32 or higher, compared to the 1% of the control group. Do note that no single test is conclusive, and not every autistic person necessarily scores above the defined threshold on each test. If you score low on the AQ but still think you could be autistic, try taking a few other autism tests. So I got 28, and it says any score of 26 or higher indicate the presence of autistic traits. Recommended next steps. the CATQ, C-A-T-Q, measures camouflaging and can account for lower scores on other autism tests. We'll give that one a go. And then there's also something called the Aspie quiz, identifies neurodivergence and potential co-occurring conditions. Oh, well, I mean, do I really need to take that one? Okay, let's do the CATQ. Oh my God, the image. There's a girl with red hair with a mask on. That's funny. Okay. Oh, low battery. No. No. Where's my charger? No. It's downstairs. No. Look, I'm just gonna let you watch the birds. I'm just gonna go get my charger. All right, where'd you go, birdies? Oh, there. Okay. Well, I'm going to sit somewhere else for this because I was getting kind of uncomfortable sitting there. So, where should I sit? I can't be bothered. I'll sit where I was sitting. Okay, wow, I've been recording for 1 hour and 47 minutes. You know what, I think I'm just gonna upload this video like now. Well, not right now, but once I stop doing this, I'm gonna upload this. And then I'll upload my next episode of the 100-day unboxing later today. And as much as that really upsets me OCD-wise, because up until now, the whole streak on my channel page is like unboxing 100 days, 100 parcels, day 21, day 22, day 23. And now suddenly I'm going to have a random video that's not unboxing anything. But I'm challenging myself, you know, I'm pushing myself. So I will upload this video, as much as it makes my stomach quite literally churn and it makes me feel really ill at the thought of breaking the pattern. It's all right. It's okay. Come here, Errol. Come on. Good boy. Don't let Dumpling bully you. He's a nasty bird. He is. He's a very nasty bird. He's not the Messiah. He's a very naughty boy. Okay. Can you see Errol? You must be able to see him at all times. Okay, so let's do this, the CATQ. Dumpling, I should take the lamp off that table. Yeah, I'm gonna take the lamp down because he likes to sit on the lamp and he's gonna knock it over one day, I swear. Because he's a big fat bird. Okay. Oh. This is madness. This is Sparta. No. Excuse me. Yes, hello. Oh, sorry. Yes, I know. Okay. Here we go. There. Don't worry, I won't let him hurt you. Yeah, you stay here. You're safe with me. It's okay. No nasty dumplings can hurt you. All right, so the Camouflaging Autistic Traits Questionnaire, CATQ, is a self-report measure of social camouflaging behaviours in adults. It may be used to identify autistic individuals who do not currently meet diagnostic criteria due to their ability to mask their autistic proclivities. Well, if the other two tests are anything to go by, cat Q, let's go. When I'm interacting with someone, I deliberately copy their body language or facial expressions. Strongly agree, I do that. I monitor my body language or facial expressions so I appear relaxed. Strongly agree. I rarely feel the need to put on an act in order to get through a social situation. Strongly disagree. I have developed a script to follow in social situations. Strongly agree. Yeah, before I go somewhere, so if I'm going to hang out with Dan's family, I prepare a script in my head for like what I'm gonna talk to them about. So I remind myself, the last time I saw his sister, she told me this about work, and last time I saw my brother-in-law, he was talking about this, and my mother-in-law, I'll ask her this and this and this, and I have it like preloaded and ready to go. Hey, no, you're a naughty boy. Leave Errol alone. I will repeat phrases that I've heard others say in the exact same way that I first heard them. Yeah. I adjust my body language or facial expressions so that I appear interested by the person I'm interacting with. I do. Like I really, really try to make sure that they know that I'm interested. So I will lean in, or I'll like look at them directly and I'll nod and things like that. Like I really, I don't like when you're talking to someone and they're like looking away and they don't seem interested. So I always try to make it very obvious that I'm interested. In social situations, I feel like I'm performing rather than being myself. I'm going to say somewhat agree, because it depends on the social situation, you know. Hey, stop it. He's pecking his tail. Go away. That's mean. Yeah, I feel like I'm performing rather than being myself. I'm going to say agree, not somewhat agree, not strongly agree. I'll just say agree. This is what I was talking about when I have comfort friends. So Grace, Tiasha, Sam, and Michelle, and obviously Dan and my parents. They're the people that I can literally just be me. Just like, I don't put anything on whatsoever. But most of our other friends, when they come over to hang out, I do have to put on a bit of an act, just to appear, I don't know. It's really hard to explain, but yes. In my own social interactions, I use behaviors that I've learnt from watching other people interacting. I don't know. In my own social interactions. So what's social interaction? Okay, let's say, for example, when I went to pick up the mulberry tree from the guy on the Facebook Marketplace, it says, I use behaviors I've learnt from watching other people interact. Well, when I went to get the mulberry tree, I knocked on the guy's door and I complimented him on his house, and I asked him if it was a knockdown rebuild because all the other houses in the street were old, but his was brand new. And he said it was, and that he had been living there for 30 years in a small house, and then they saved up, and then they knocked down their old house and built a new one. And I'm trying to think, like, that's a social interaction that I had. And were those behaviors learnt from watching other people interact? Like talking about how... I don't know. I really don't know. That's very hard to tell, because like I know how I act, and I believe that to be those behaviors to be my behaviors. But then I'm like, but how did I learn those behaviors? Somewhat agree. I always think about the impression I make on other people. Strongly agree. I need the support of other people in order to socialize. Strongly agree. This is literally like Tiasha pushing me through the door at the house party. once I was in there, once she pushed me through the door, I was okay. But I won't go to things unless there's someone else going, you know, like, you know, you get invited to a party on Facebook and you look at the invite list and you scroll through to see who's going. And there's particular people that if they're going, you'll go. But if they're not going, there's no way in hell. So yeah, I practice my facial expressions and body language to make sure they look natural. Somewhat disagree. I don't feel the need to make eye contact with other people if I don't want to. Agree. It's funny because if people are talking to me, if I'm talking to someone and they don't make eye contact with me, I get very upset. But also, when I'm walking through the shops, for example, I look at the ground. I don't look at the people around me. I can't make eye contact in public. And then sometimes when I'm having a conversation with someone and if I feel uncomfortable, I do not look at them in the face. I can't make eye contact. I don't feel the need to make eye contact with other people if I don't want to. Yes, strongly agree. I have to force myself to interact with people when I'm in social situations. Strongly agree. I do have to force myself to do it. I have tried to improve my understanding of social skills by watching other people. Neither agree nor disagree. I monitor my body language or facial expressions so that I appear interested by the person I'm interacting with. Well, yes, strongly agree. When in social situations, I try to find ways to avoid interacting with others. Strongly agree. Not me being like, is there anything I can do in the kitchen to help so that I can get away from everyone? I have researched the rules of social interactions to improve my own social skills. No, disagree. I'm always aware of the impression I make on other people. Strongly agree. I feel free to be myself when I'm with other people. Somewhat disagree. I learn how people use their bodies and faces to interact by watching television or films, or by reading fiction. I learn how people use their bodies and faces to interact by watching television. No, disagree. I adjust my body language or facial expressions so that I appear relaxed. Yeah, I often have to remind myself to do that. I often find myself sort of standing with my arms crossed or like, or I stand there kind of doing this, and Dan will point it out and Dan will like reach up and sort of pull my hand down and be like, you're doing that thing. And I'm like, oh. When talking to other people, I feel like the conversation flows naturally. I'll say agree, because conversation usually does flow naturally, but a lot of times if I'm talking to someone that's not good at holding up the conversation, I feel like I'm the one that has to keep the conversation going, and it's very draining. I've spent time learning social skills from television shows and films and try to use these in my interactions. No, I disagree. In my social interactions, I do not pay attention to what my face or body are doing. Disagree. In social situations, I feel like I'm pretending to be normal. Strongly agree. And then that's it. Score. Let's see. 136. Says compensation 39, masking 49, assimilation 48. So self-scoring. Reserve the scores of the answers for statements 3, 12, 19, 22, and 24, like so. Original scoring, A is 1, B is 2, C is 3, yada yada. Then add up all the answers from statements 1 to 25. Hang on, is this telling me I have to do the maths myself? A total score of 100, but what? I have to do it myself? I'm looking for a calculator. Maybe I can do it in my head. I'm confused. I'm very, very fucking confused. I don't understand. It gives me a score. It says total 136, compensation 39, masking 49, assimilation 48. But average. Oh, so I didn't scroll down far enough, sorry. So there's a table that says average CAT scores for autistics. So in females, the total score, it says 124.35, and my total was 136. So this is saying the average score in autistics is 124, so mine's higher than average. Compensation for females, 41. Oh, and also I appreciate they have female, male, and non-binary. So it actually has different scores. So female, 124.35, male, 109.64, non-binary, 122. So compensation, average autistic score, 41.85. Mine is 39 for compensation. Then masking, average autistic score, 37.87. Mine's 49. And assimilation, average autistic score is 44.63, and mine is 48. And then it says, here we go, average scores for neurotypicals. Average CATQ scores of neurotypicals. Surprisingly, neurotypical females camouflage the least. Average score for neurotypicals in total is 90, and mine was 136. For compensation, neurotypical 27.18, mine's 39. Masking, neurotypical 34.69, mine's 49. Assimilation, 29 neurotypicals, and mine's 48. And then there's also something here that says, as in the table below, you can see the differences in the average scores of autistic people compared to neurotypicals. As you can see, autistic males and autistic non-binary people mask less than their neurotypical counterparts, but do score higher in compensation and assimilation. So it says, so the CAT-Q scores for autistic neurotypical differences. Total score in females, 33.48. Wait. I don't understand what this means. Autistic neurotypical differences? Is that saying like there'll be a score difference of 33 points between neurotypical? So in this, so it says neurotypicals total score 90, and then average, no, autistics? I'm sorry, this is kind of confusing. Average CAT score for neurotypicals, total 90 in females. My total score is 136. So then if I go down to this lower chart and it says autistic neurotypical differences, total score 33.48. So does that mean typically between neurotypical people and autistic people, there is a difference in the score of 33 points? And if the neurotypical total score is 90 and my score is 130 something, that's a difference of 40 points. I think that's what it's trying to say. So then it says compensation, there's normally a difference of 14 points between the two. So compensation 27 for neurotypicals, and for me 39. So 14 to 29, so 14 to 24 would be 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Okay, a 15-point difference for me. And this said, on average, 14-point difference. Masking, 3.18 difference. So it said masking 34 for females, and I got 49. So my difference is 11. Oh wait, so no, more than 11. Oh God, all this, I can't with the maths. Anyway, and assimilation, 15 is the normal difference, and so that means that in neurotypicals, assimilation's 29 and mine was 48. So 29 to 39 would be 10, to 49 would be 20, minus 1, 19. And this said typically it's 15 points difference. It's also interesting that autistic men don't camouflage much more than neurotypical men. The same is true for non-binary people. If you look at the previous two diagrams, you'll see that is because non-binary people camouflage a lot in general, irrespective of whether they are autistic or neurotypical. Okay, correlations. Another way to make sense of your score, okay, good, is to look at the correlations. All CAT-Q scores significantly correlate with autistic-like traits, but there are some other correlations. High CAT-Q scores correlate with social anxiety in both autistics and neurotypicals, with the exception of masking. Well, I do have social anxiety that I have medication for that I try not to take because I don't want to become addicted to it. In autistic people, the total CAT-Q score and the assimilation score negatively correlate with well-being. The higher your scores on these measures, the lower your well-being tends to be. So the total score and the assimilation score, the higher, the lower. So my total score is 136 and the assimilation score is 48. And it says, so I have a high total score and a high assimilation score. So the higher the scores, the lower your well-being tends to be. Well, anyone that's seen a photo of me from 2016 and compares it to what I look like now can probably tell that my well-being has gone down the drain. In neurotypical people, all CAT-Q scores negatively correlate with well-being, not just total score and assimilation. I don't know what that means. In autistic people, all CAT-Q scores were correlated with depression and generalized anxiety. This wasn't tested for in the neurotypical group. For more information about correlations, have a look at the following post, Autism and Camouflaging. And for more information on how to interpret your scores, have a look at this post. Oh, good. Okay, there's a score for interpreting your CAT-Q scores. Good, because I'm quite confused by that. That one, the others were all pretty straightforward, but this one is definitely confusing me. So interpreting your CAT-Q score, and it's a picture of like salad fingers. Okay, so if you want to know if you camouflage your autistic traits, you should take the yeah, I did that score. Gives you a total score as well as scores in 3 subtypes, compensation, masking, and assimilation. But what do your scores in each category mean? In this post, we'll give you more context, examples, and comparisons. So camouflaging. All right, so let me go back to my scores. So for, oh, there's no score for camouflaging. What? Everyone with or without autism camouflages, oh, I see, sorry, camouflaging wasn't a score, it's just talking about camouflaging. So everyone with or without camouflages at times. If you feel shy about meeting someone new, you might pretend to be brave enough, though you do not feel that way. But for autistic people, camouflaging is not just about acting confident. Many autistic people feel the need to hide their autistic traits in order to avoid stigma and unwanted attention. But the deeper goal is generally because they want to make friends and form connections. That might include forcing yourself to make eye contact, or thinking of and potentially rehearsing a list of questions to ask when you meet someone new, so you may avoid social faux pas. And then it says compensation in brackets. Some people might camouflage when they're at school or work so that people do not treat them differently. Some autistics camouflage when they meet new people to make a good impression and maybe a new friend. Others will stop camouflaging once they get to know someone and think they will accept their natural selves. Sorry, I was like, the way that I call Grace, Tiasha, Sam, Michelle, Dan, my comfort people, because I can be myself around them. Often you'll stop camouflaging once you get to know someone and think they will accept your natural self. Camouflaging isn't necessarily conscious or deliberate. Finding ways to hide autistic proclivities or trying to be perceived as socially appropriate can happen even when the autistic person is unaware. In many cases, camouflaging starts out as a conscious strategy, but quickly evolves into an automatic process. You can read more on the consequences of that here, and then it's got a link to masking, is it good or bad? So we've got camouflaging subtypes. Before we get to the CAT-Q scores, we'll briefly explain what the CAT-Q actually measures. The psychometric test is based on the social camouflaging model, which consists of 3 subcategories. Compensation. People use various strategies to camouflage their autism. They might practice making friendly faces in the mirror, finding it hard to make those faces naturally. We call this compensation because these autistic people are compensating for certain social shortcomings, or rather differences from the majority group conventions. Examples: copying and practicing others' body language or facial expressions. Like I said, I copied my friend Nikki's body language and it's mine now. Learning social cues and skills from television. Don't think so. Repeating others' phrasing and tone. Masking. Another strategy is masking, where autistic people hide how they're feeling. For instance, they may copy what someone else is talking about if they don't know what to say. Examples: monitoring and adjusting your face and body to appear relaxed or interested in others. Feeling pressured to make eye contact. Thinking about the impression made on others. Assimilation. Often autistic people try to fit in with others so they're not bullied or singled out. This is called assimilation. For example, these people might stand near others in a crowd but not interact with them. Examples: feeling the need to put on an act while socializing, avoiding interacting with others in social situations, needing others' support to socialize. In the diagram below, you can see the 3 categories and the 25 items. I'm not going to look at this, too many words. No. Average CAT-Q scores. Higher scores are associated with psychological distress and functional challenges. So ideally you want a score to be as low as possible. Unfortunately, that's not likely to be the case if you're autistic. Total scores above 100 are indicative of camouflaging autistic traits, but that score alone may not be very meaningful to you. Let's have a look at the average scores of autistic and non-autistic people so you get an idea of where the most significant differences are, as well as whether your score in the autistic or neurotypical range. The star denotes who got the highest average score in the category. The average scores are based on a study from 2019. All right, well, this is the same as what it was on the other page. So where it said that the average score for autistic people in total was 124, mine's 136. And then it said for neurotypicals, total score on average is 90. Okay. That was the same as the other page. Camouflaging autistic traits. The higher your camouflaging score, the less autistic you likely appear. And the less autistic you appear, the more difficult it is to identify your autism. Consequently, a lot of autistic people that camouflage their autistic traits either have their diagnosis delayed, are misdiagnosed, or escape diagnosis completely. As early as 1981, Lorna Wing, the British psychiatrist and pioneer of autism practice, hypothesized that some autistic girls without an intellectual disability may escape diagnosis on account of appearing to have better social and communication abilities compared to males. So camouflaging likely accounts, at least in part, for the different ratios of diagnosis between men and women. But note also that the higher your camouflaging score, the more likely you are to score lower on other autism tests. Because the thing about camouflaging is that a lot of us have a long history of doing it. So a large part of camouflaging becomes second nature. And the trouble with that is that you may very well camouflage even when doing a psychometric test. So try to be mindful of that and try to answer questions on an autism test as authentically as possible. So that means you should try to answer questions based on your actual proclivities and preferences rather than how you behave based on social expectations. The CAT Q can reveal the difference between your true self and the person you present as when you're with other people. If you score inconsistently on autism tests, it may be that you're not autistic, but it can also mean that you just camouflage your autistic traits considerably. A trained medical professional should be able to assess which of the two applies to you, though sadly there are still lots of medical professionals who fail to account for camouflaging. Well, so that's 3 tests now that I've scored within or higher than the range for autism. And then this last one is called Aspie quiz. So it says the Aspie quiz is self-administered questionnaire to measure autistic traits in adults with an IQ in the normal range. In fact, it measures both autistic and neurotypical traits in 5 domains: talent, perception, communication, relationship, and social. There's 121 questions, and the duration is 10 to 20 minutes. Ah, well, you're here. You've come this far. You may as well keep watching. Dumpling, stop. Stop cooing at yourself, please. Whoa, this is a different website. What on earth? Participate in our evaluation. Go directly to the test, okay. Oh, okay, year of birth, 93. Month of birth, September. Sex, female. Country, Australia. Recent main ancestry. Oh, Scottish. Is there no... What? There's no option for... Sorry. What? Denmark, Iceland. Surely there's one for Scotland. There's one for Ireland. Austria? Germany? Where's Scotland? Greece, Italy. What? Come on, as if there's no Scottish. It's a Caucasian, Northern Europe, Denmark, Finland, Iceland, Norway, Sweden, Central Europe, Austria, Czech, Western Europe, Belgium, France, Ireland, Netherlands, United Kingdom, Spain. I guess I'll say Ireland because I do have a bit of Irish ancestry, but it's mostly Scottish. But or do you say United Kingdom? No, that's England. I'm sorry, this shouldn't be taking me so long. This is very stressful. I'm just gonna say Ireland. Autism, ASD, Asperger, HFA, and then you can choose no, suspect or self-diagnosed, or professional diagnosis. I'll say suspected. ADD, professional diagnosis. OCD, professional diagnosis. Social phobia. I'm going to say suspected because that feels right. Oh, my goodness. Okay. Disclaimer, this questionnaire should not be taken as a substitute for a professional evaluation. Some of the questions are phrased so that a broader autism cluster, Aspie, answer is yes, and some so that a broader autism cluster answer is no. So you can answer 0, 0, 1, and 2. So 0 is no, never, 1 is a little, 2 is yes, often, and the question mark is don't know. We've got 121 mixed questions. All right, guys, let's try and get this done in 2 minutes. Do you have a monotonous voice? No. Is it important for you to find a unique niche where you can acquire unique competence? Yes. Do you dislike it when people stamp their foot in the floor? Yes. Do you find it difficult to take messages on the telephone and pass them on correctly? No. Do people sometimes think you're smiling at the wrong occasion? A little. Can you easily remember verbal instructions? No. Do you fiddle with things? A little. Do you obstruct others' plans? A little. Do you have odd hair? For example, multiple whirls, standing up when short, or other peculiarities? Look, I'm going to say yes, I have odd hair. Do you enjoy traditional dating? I don't know. Do you usually find faults with others' opinions that you don't share? Yeah, I guess so. Do you instinctively become frightened by the sound of a motorbike? Yes. Do you rock back and forth or side to side to comfort or calm yourself? Yes. Do you tend to develop romantic feelings for people that persistently show interest for you? No. Do you find yourself at ease in romantic situations? No. Do you or you used to have imaginary relationships? Yes. Do you feel an urge to peel flakes off yourself and others? Yes. Do you have an urge to jump over things? I'll say a little, because I used to jump over things all the time, but now I'm too scared that I'll fall. Do you prefer to do things on your own, even if you could use others' help or expertise? Yes. Do you need to do things yourself in order to remember them? Yes. Have people formed strong attachments to taken advantage of you? Yes. I think I understand what that means. Do you find it difficult to take notes in lectures? Yes. Do you prefer to keep to yourself? Yes. Do you feel as if you're being persecuted in some way? A little. Do you get a pleasurable tingling sensation in the head, scalp, or back of the body in response to certain sounds? Yes. Do you accept criticism, correction, and direction? A little. Do you have problems with timing in conversations? A little. Do you find it very hard to learn things that you're not interested in? Yes. Do you have difficulty describing and summarizing things? For example, events, conversations, or something you've read? Yes, I can't summarize. I must tell the whole thing. Do you talk to yourself? Yes. Have you been accused of staring? No. In a conversation, do you tend to focus on your own thoughts rather than what your listener might be thinking? A little. Are you more sexually attracted to strangers than people you know well? You know what? I'm going to say a big fat fucking yes, because I've been dreaming a lot about Benedict Cumberbatch lately. Do you have problems filling out forms? A little. Do you notice patterns in things all the time? Yes. Are you good at teamwork? No. Are you afraid are you sometimes afraid in safe situations? Yes. Do you like tongue kissing? No. A little. Do you bite your lip, cheek, or tongue when thinking? Yes. If there's an interruption, can you quickly return to what you were doing before? No. Have your thoughts ever been so vivid that you were worried other people would hear them? A little. Do you find it easy to describe your feelings? No. Do you stay away from situations where people might express affection for you? Yes. In conversations, do you need extra time to carefully think out your reply so that there may be a pause before you answer? Yes. Do you dislike when people walk behind you? Yes. Do you instinctively know when it's your turn to speak when talking on the phone? Yes. Do you have difficulty accepting criticism, correction, and direction? You already asked me that, a little. Do you like to protect people you're attached to, even when they didn't ask for it? Yes. Is your sense of humour different from mainstream or considered odd? A little? Are you bothered by clothes tags or light touch? A lot. Before doing something or going somewhere, do you need to have a picture in your mind of what's going to happen so as to be able to prepare yourself mentally first? Yes, but that being said, I can also be spontaneous. But if I'm organizing it, I literally have to know everything. I have to know where I'm going to be sitting, what's on the menu, what is the place 2 stories, is it like, where's it located, how far is the car park, like all that sort of thing. Do you tend to get so absorbed by a special interest you forget or ignore everything else? Yes. Do you expect other people to know your thoughts, experiences, opinions without you having to tell them? Yeah, kind of. Do others often misunderstand you? A little. Do you have certain routines which you need to follow? Yes. Do you tend to shut down or have a meltdown when stressed or overwhelmed? Yes. Has it been harder for you than others to keep friends? I'm going to say a little. Do you feel that you're a very special or unusual person? Yeah, I think I'm pretty unusual. Do you like to follow, walk behind people you're attached to? Don't know. I don't know. Yeah, a little actually. Because like when I have been out with Tiasha and Millie, I tend to always try to walk behind them. Do you have one special talent which you have emphasized and worked on? Photography. Do you have difficulties judging distances, height, depth, or speed? I don't know. I'm very good judging distances. I'm exceptionally good. Like I can look at something and be like, that's 1.5 meters. Like, or that's 162 centimeters. And then someone will take out a tape measure and I'll be within like 1 or 2 centimeters of it. But depth and speed, I'm not so good at. So I'm just going to leave it as I don't know. Do you have a fascination for slowly flowing water? That's oddly specific, but yes, I do. I could sit by a creek bed for days. Have others told you have an odd posture or gait? Yep. Do you have an urge to learn the routines of people you know? Yes. Do you have problems recognizing faces? No. In conversations, do you use small sounds that others don't seem to use? Yes. Do you tap your ears or press your leg? Do you tap your ears or press your eyes when thinking, when stressed or distressed? Yes. Do you forget you're in a social situation when something gets your attention? Yes. Do you find it hard to tell the age of people? No. Is it hard for you to approach somebody you're attracted to? Well, I mean, I've been with the one person for a very, very long time, so no. Do recently heard tunes or rhythms tend to stick and replay themselves repeatedly in your head? Fuck, yes. Yeah. Do you have a good sense of how much pressure to apply when doing things with your hands? Yes. Do you find it hard to recognize phone numbers when said in a different way? Yes. Yeah, dumpling, no pecking. I have a very specific way of saying my phone number, and I've had people try to repeat my phone number back to me, and I'm like, because I normally go, wait, I normally say a pattern. I go 4, 3, 3, but then some people go 3, 3. I literally can't even do it in my head. I can't even comprehend the way that other people say it. Do you take pride in your appearance? No. Do you have trouble reading clocks? Yes. Do you need a lot of motivation to do things? Yes. Do you mistake noises for voices? Yes. Do you get confused by several verbal instructions at the same time? Yes. Do you have an avid perseverance in gathering and or cataloging information on a topic of interest? Yes. Are you asexual? Huh. A little. Yeah. I've never talked about this. Hey, you bad bird. But I will do things because the person that I love wants that type of interaction, but I could go for the rest of my life with cuddling and be very, very content. Do you find it disturbing or upsetting when others show up either later or sooner than agreed? A little. Will you abandon your friends if your activities or ideals clash? No. Do you have an urge to observe the habits of humans or animals? Yes, I love people watching. When I'm in Shinjuku or, you know, anywhere where you can just sit and look out a window and there's thousands of people, I just love watching people. Or if I'm sitting on a train and you pull up at the next station and you just look out the window and there's people on the platform, I just love looking at people and seeing what they're doing. And obviously we all know I can sit for 9 hours in a small box and watch birds. Do you dislike it when people drop by to visit you uninvited? That's a hard one. I'm going to say a little, because if Grace turned up right now, or Tiasha or someone turned up, totally fine. If there was a knock at the door and it was someone else, I would probably be mortified. Do you work slowly on jobs you dislike? Yes. Do you have an alternative view of what is attractive in the opposite sex? An alternative view of what's attractive in males? I would say a little. I know that that's something that I've often not argued with other girls about, but just when I've spoken to people that are attracted to men, a lot of the time they talk about being attracted to someone that's tall, thin, fit, you know, has a six-pack kind of thing. I've always found myself far more physically attracted to people that are heftier, I suppose, like bigger. Like, I'm actually completely turned off by muscular dudes, like, you know, guys that like have big muscles and everything. I'm like, ugh. So yeah, I guess so. Do you find it natural to wave or say hi when you meet people? Yes. Do you need lists and schedules in order to get things done? Yes. Do you see your own activities as more important than other people's? I'm going to say a little, because I do often, like, if I know that there's something else that needs to be done for someone else, I do find it quite hard to begin doing that thing until I've finished doing the thing that I'm trying to do. Do you feel irritated when one person disagrees with what everyone else in the group believes? No. I'm always the one that's like, well, that's okay. Everyone's entitled to their own opinion. Do you tend to interpret things literally? Yes. Do you pace? Yes. A little. It says, do you pace, example, when thinking or anxious? I think I actually curl up in a ball, but I do also pace. Do you find it hard to be emotionally close to other people? Disagree. Do you prefer to construct your own set of spiritual beliefs rather than following existing religions? 110%. Do you have unusual sexual preferences? I'm going to say a little. Look, when I tell you about these Benedict Cumberbatch dreams, I'm just... are your eyes extra sensitive to strong light and glare? Yes. No, they're not actually, no. No, I was about to say yes because, like, the glare does hurt, but also when I'm in bed, I can look at my phone in the dark on full brightness and it's no problem. And Dan will be like, please turn it down, it's hurting my eyes. So I've never had an issue with that. Would you quickly become impatient and irritated if you could not find a solution to a problem? No, I will fester over it for days on end until I work it out. Do you have a tendency to become stuck when asked questions in social situations? No, I don't think so. But also, no one ever asks me questions, like, ever. I always feel like no one is interested in me because a lot of the time when I interact with a group of people, no one asks me anything. There are people that do ask me things, and I have no problem answering questions. So I'm going to say no. Have you experienced stronger than normal attachments to certain people? Yes. I guess people would be like, your ex-boyfriend is your best friend. Like, that's probably a stronger than normal attachment for a lot of people. The fact that, you know, I love Sam so much, he's never not going to be part of my life. He's literally my brother. I'm an only child, he's an only child. Yes, we dated for a couple of years, but just because we're no longer in a relationship doesn't mean I don't love him deeply. Like, he's always going to be a part of my life, you know. And Dan loves him too. So yeah, I guess that is probably considered a stronger than normal attachment to certain people. Or like, for example, this lady that my parents were friends with, she was in her 70s and she passed away a few years ago, and I cry every time I think about her. And I only knew her for a very brief period of time. My parents only introduced me to her a couple of years before she died, but she became one of my best friends, and we were such different people. But I don't know why, I just suddenly became very, very attached to her. So yeah, agree. Do you find it easier to understand and communicate with odd and unusual people than with ordinary people? Hell yeah. Do you realize hours later that somebody that you have a romantic interest for actually showed interest for you, and then feel bad about the missed opportunity to connect? See, I can't answer this because I've been with Dan since 2014, and before Dan I'd been with Sam, and before Sam I'd been with Aaron. So I've only dated 3 people. So I don't know. Are you good at interpreting facial expressions? Yes. Are you easily distracted? Yes. Is it hard for you to see why some things upset people so much? No. Maybe. I'm going to leave that as a maybe. Are you sensitive to changes in humidity and air pressure? Yes. Do you tend to say things that are considered socially inappropriate when you're tired, frustrated, or when you act naturally? A little. Do you have problems finding your way to new places? No, because I have a GPS. So I'm going to say no. Do you find it easy to estimate the age of people? Yes. Do you examine the hair of people you like a lot? Yes. Do you have extra sensitive hearing? Yes. Is your sense of humour fairly conventional? No. Do you enjoy big events even if they're crowded? No. Do you wring your hands, rub your hands together, or twirl your fingers? I do this. See this specifically? I've always done that as a habit. Like I guess it's, and this one too. I do this sometimes when I'm anxious. Do you prefer to only meet people you know, one-on-one, or in small familiar groups? Yes. Do you enjoy travel? Yes. As a teenager, were you usually unaware of social rules and boundaries unless they were clearly spelt out? I don't know. I couldn't tell you. Do you enjoy spinning in circles? Yes. Do you tend to look a lot at people you like and little or not at all at people you dislike? Yes. Do you tend to express your feelings in ways that may baffle others? Yes. Do you prefer to hug only a romantic partner? No. Are you shy? No. Okay, calculate. Thanks for filling this out. Your broader autism cluster score is 147 of 200. Your neurotypical score is 73 of 200. You are very likely on the broader autism cluster, Aspie. Detailed results suitable for printing, PDF. Oh yes, download. Okay. How do I interpret this chart? Look, I'm just going to put this up on screen and you can pause and try to interpret it. I don't know if I'm going to interpret this wrong, but so intellectual skills. I'm guessing that the closer it is to the word, the more that thing you are. but it's got intellectual skills and people skills. So I'm leaning really heavily over to, it says talent, perception, Aspie, communication, relationship, and then it kind of dips off at social. I don't really know how to interpret that chart. But I did download this PDF. So it says Aspie, Aspie talent. This group contains intellectually related broader autism cluster traits. Typical traits are related to strong interests that can become obsessive. Example, having strong interests, hyper-focusing, collecting information, good long-term memory related to interests, figuring out how things work, making connections between things. Other traits are related to information processing. Example, noticing details, finding patterns, unusual imagination, unique ideas. Some people have special talents. Example, numbers, language, computers, and music. Diagnostic relation. A high score is related to Asperger's syndrome and obsessive compulsive disorder. Your score, 10 out of 10, above average. Well, we know I have OCD. Detailed information about overall Aspie and neurotypical scoring. Question, do you tend to get so absorbed by your special interest that you forget or ignore everything else? And I chose 2. This, yes. I think what this is saying is that there's 5 questions here that give you scores. So do you tend to get absorbed by a special interest? And if you say 2, like yes, you mark 2, it gives you a score 2.83. Then it asks, do you have an avid perseverance in gathering or calculating information on a topic of interest? And if you answer yes, it gives a score of 2.5. Is it important for you to find a unique niche? Gives you a score of 2.43 if you answer yes. Do you notice patterns in things? It gives you 2.52 for saying yes. Do you have one special talent that you have emphasized and worked on? If you say yes, you get 2. It says total score, I got 12 out of 12. All right. Aspie quiz, neurotypical talent. This group contains intellectually related neurotypical traits. These are often defined in terms of disabilities. Typical traits are related to verbal communication, learning by imitation, staying focused even when doing boring things, trouble with finding places, and a poor concept of time. Diagnostic relation. A low score is related to dyslexia and dyscalculia, but also to other diagnoses like ADD, ADHD. Your score, 1.8 of 10, below average. Right, yeah, well, I don't have dyslexia, but I do have dysgraphia, and it says it can also be related to diagnoses like ADHD. So it's saying I'm below average. Oh, this says, but neurotypical talent, below average. So a low score. Oh! I interpreted that completely wrong. A low score is related to dyslexia, but also ADD, ADHD, and my score was 1.8 out of 10. Oh, that is a low score. Oh. Aspie perception. This group contains broader autism cluster perception traits. These traits can become a disability by causing sensory overload and even a complete shutdown. The need for routines and predictability to a large extent seems to be caused by acute perception and the related risk of sensory overload. The core traits are hypersensitivity to touch, smell, sound, taste, strong light, humidity, wind, heat, and electromagnetic fields. Some people are less sensitive to pain. Diagnostic relation. No direct, but autistic people often have differences in perception. I scored 8.9 out of 10, above average. Okay. That dog barking. And there's nothing I can do. Okay, neurotypical perception. This group contains neurotypical perception traits. Typical traits are reading facial expressions, recognizing people, and estimating age, which involves the human face. Other traits are judging distance, speed, acceleration, pressure, and time. A low score is related to dyspraxia. You scored 8.5 out of 10, above average. Okay, so I have a good score there. So I don't have issues with neurotypical perception. Aspie communication. This group contains broader autism cluster communication traits. Key traits in this group are related to atypical nonverbal communication, example, odd facial expressions, being accused of staring, using unusual sounds in conversations, blinking or rolling eyes, clenching fists, grinding teeth. Oh, I grind my teeth terribly. Thrusting tongue, blushing. Related traits are stims, example, wringing hands, rubbing hands, twirling fingers, rocking, tapping eyes, pressing eyes, fiddling with things, pacing, flapping hands, peeling skin flakes. Diagnostic relation, no direct, but a high score is related to stimming and unusual communication. Your score was 8.1 out of 10, above average. Neurotypical communication. This group contains neurotypical communication traits. The key trait is the ability to interpret and show typical nonverbal communication, example, facial expressions, body language, courtship, prosody. The absence of these abilities lead to secondary problems, example, unaware of how to behave, unaware of boundaries, being misunderstood, missing hidden agendas, being unaware of others' intentions, misinterpreting figures of speech, idioms and allegories, illiteral interpretation, not knowing when to apologize, saying inappropriate things, seemingly poor empathy. A low score is related to autism spectrum conditions, and I scored 3.4 out of 10. But it says that's average apparently. Aspie relationships. This group contains broader autism cluster relationship and attachment traits. The main trait is a strong attachment formed over a longer period of time that often can last for life, even in the absence of further contact. Related to the attachment is being protective, learning routines, walking behind, and examining hair. Some people form multiple attachments, polyamory, while others form imaginary attachments in the absence of a suitable partner. Contact phase traits include unusual sexual preferences and being more sexually attracted to strangers. Odd hair probably plays a role in recognition in the contact phase. A high score is related to attachment disorders and paraphilias. Your score, 8.8 out of 10, above average. Neurotypical relationships. This group defines neurotypical relationships and attachment traits. Traits are related to the typical process of finding a partner, dating, courtship, and sexual intimacy. The intimacy traits defines the norm in society and aim at creating and maintaining attachment with sex. People that dislike this norm often identify as asexual. A low score is related to intimacy problems. I got 3.6 out of 10, but it says that's average. Aspie social. This group contains broader autism cluster social traits. The traits are about putting oneself in the center and living in small stationary groups. It also includes having trouble with authority, arguing, and revenge. Diagnostic relation, none. Your score, 4.7 out of 10, average. Neurotypical social. This group contains neurotypical social traits. The traits are adaptations for socializing with strangers and superficial acquaintances, forming relationships and coalitions. Important traits are sharing and talking about feelings with strangers and superficial acquaintances as a way to socialize and exchange information. Hugging, waving, and shaking hands are traits used in the interaction. There's no diagnostic relation. My score was 4 out of 10, average. And that's it. It ends. So the only other thing is there's charts under all of these that gives a total Aspie score, or a, what did NT, neurotypical, stand for? So with this, with the neurotypical social traits, I got 14 out of 28 for Aspie, 13 out of 37 for neurotypical, so greater on the Aspie side. With broader autism cluster social traits, I got 7 out of 17 for Aspie, 5 out of 10 for neurotypical. With neurotypical relationships and attachment traits, I got 0 out of 1 for Aspie and 8 out of 22 for neurotypical. For autism cluster relationships and attachment traits, I got 25 out of 28 for Aspie, 2 out of 11 for neurotypical. For neurotypical communication traits, I got 15 out of 24 for Aspie, 7 out of 22 for neurotypical. For broader autism cluster communication traits, I got 24 out of 30 for Aspie, 5 out of 26 for neurotypical. For neurotypical perception traits, I got 1 out of 5 for Aspie, 26 out of 28 for neurotypical. For broader autism cluster perception traits, I got 25 out of 28 for Aspie, 1 out of 18 for neurotypical. For intellectually related neurotypical traits, I got 23 out of 27 for Aspie, 6 out of 23 for neurotypical. For intellectually related broader autism cluster traits, I got 12 out of 12 Aspie and 0 out of 2 neurotypical. So there you go. That's 4 quizzes telling me that I have pretty strong traits of autism. So I see now why people have left comments telling me, you know, have you ever considered you might be autistic? That is very interesting for me, and I don't know what to do from here, because as far as I'm aware, there's no medication for autism, and you know, it's just, you just get told, yes, you're autistic. Like, it's not like ADHD. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but from my understanding, it's not like ADHD or OCD where you get diagnosed and then you get given medication that helps to relieve the symptoms or alleviate the symptoms. With autism, would you not get a diagnosis and then I don't know? Well, Sam's calling me. Well, seeing as Sam's calling me, I'm going to leave this video here, and I'm going to update you guys about the rest of my day later. But please have a discussion down below. Thank you for watching. Love you guys. Bye.